So stress is the thing that gets us focused on the things in the environment that may cause us harm. So in that way, stress protects us from harm. Too much stress or chronic or unabated stress can make life and learning very challenging because it doesn't go away. One of the things that I came to learn late in my professional career, or later in my professional career, is when the stress related parts, the emotion related parts of the brain light up, if you will, get activated. The parts of our brain that are most responsible for efficient thinking and for controlling our own behavior, notably the prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead where I'm pointing, if you can see that. That part shuts down. That's the part we need to learn. So if you think about this, think about a kid who's sitting in school or sitting in front of his or her homework, and they're seeing something and they say, well, I don't know how to do this. This is too difficult. That kid is automatically in a state of stress. And when that happens, the very parts of our brain we need to solve those problems go to rest. They go to sleep. They're not important because all we're thinking about is survival. So that's the good, bad side of stress. But there are three ways to look at stress. There are three types of stress that are recognized in my profession. One is called good stress. It's the kind of stress that most of us experience in the morning. We get out of bed, we've got a job to do, we've got tasks to do, and we say, okay, we got work to do. Let's get ready. Let's get set. Let's go. Let's do this thing that we've got to do. If you're a teacher, you have what I would call, not necessarily stress at this level, I call it anticipatory readiness. You say, well, there are things that are going to challenge me today, but I can handle this. Good stress is the kind of stress that it doesn't bother us too much because we believe and we know that we have the skills, the competence to handle that challenge. Somewhere in the middle of this stress meter that goes from good stress to now tolerable stress. Tolerable stress is the kind of stress we experience when some things happen in our life that can be big and bad, but we know that they're going to go away. A child whose parents go on a business trip, a child who's changing schools from one district to another. We know that there's something that's going to happen that's going to resolve this. And the mantra that I like to think about when we're talking about tolerable stress is this too shall pass. We know it's going to get better, so we don't have to worry too much about it. The kind of stress that I'm mostly concerned about, and you should be too, is what we call bad stress or toxic stress. That's way, way over on the severe end of the spectrum. So toxic stress happens when we don't have any control over our environment, or we don't think we have any control over our environment. So think about this in the context of reading, writing, or math. We think that we're bad at these things. Our teacher or our parent says to us, I know you can handle it. It doesn't matter what we say to kids. It's really good to have confidence in them. But when we say, I know you can do this, it ironically adds to the stress because this kid's brain is saying, you're not very smart. You can't handle this. Here you've got a trusted, loving adult saying, I believe that you can, and you freeze. And that's what happens in this toxic stress stage. You freeze, you flee, you run away from the situation like an animal does when it's under stress. You try to get out of the situation. We see kids in every school in the country, in every classroom, in every school, in every home, exhibiting this behavior of trying to get out of something because they find it toxic. So when we understand the dynamics of that, it makes it a lot easier to create an environment that makes kids more likely to want to stay and do what they have to do and less likely to leave. So what happens to cause stress in kids? There are external things. There's lots of noise. There's chaos in a classroom. There are the increasing demands of school or work if you're an adult. All these things around you that make you feel like, oh my God, I can't function in this kind of environment. Just today, before this presentation was on, I reached over to get a note and I knocked over a glass of water and it's all over my desk. I'm babysitting for a new puppy and he's quiet now. But in those few moments, I experienced very, very high levels of stress. And my helpers at the wonderful Wonder Group helped me calm down. And I figured, oh, that's tolerable stress. It wasn't toxic. I know it's going to get better. And the dog's sleeping. I cleaned up the water. Things are cool and copacetic. But at that moment, those things in the environment caused me a lot of stress. There are also internal causes of stress. Either mostly it's about kids or adults' perceptions of the world and the jobs they have to do in the world. So they exhibit a lot of what I call negative self-talk, either internally or externally. They say, there's no way I can do this, or I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid. And you hear that from your kids often, I'm sure. Or if you're a teacher, you hear kids saying that, or they put their heads down on their desk and they stop working altogether. Some kids say, if I do this work, if I try to do this work, they'll find out how incapable and incompetent I am. So I'd really rather shut down. So it's these internal feelings that cause stress, that cause kids to want to escape. And they do. They do exactly what would be predictable. If I came up behind you and clapped a pair of cymbals, you would freeze for a moment. And if you couldn't see those cymbals, and I did it again and again and again, you would start to look for the exit sign. You'd want to get away from that. Well, it's a little bit of a leap when we say reading can be toxic or math can be toxic and create stress, but it's not so big a leap if you as the learner believe that you're really bad at it, especially if you're in a classroom full of kids. So when you see kids who are impacted by stress, you see them acting up, that is, or acting up or acting out. They have behavior problems at school, at home, or in the community. There are a lot of reasons that kids exhibit inappropriate behavior, but you have to consider that the possibility may exist that this kid is exhibiting the escape behavior of any organism under stress. And it's not an excuse for the behavior. You still have to stop the behavior. You still sometimes have to punish the behavior. There have to be consequences for the behavior. But when you understand that the kid's fear mechanism activates because of what's happening in the environment or the work that's in front of him or her, then you have the opportunity to change that environment, change the material, change the way you talk to this kid, because your goal at that point is to de-stress this kid, get the cognitive parts of his brain back into action and get him back to work. You see kids who experience academic decline. When I respond to questions on the Wonder app, I'm amazed at how many parents say, the school said my child should repeat grade 2 or repeat grade 4. And my answer always is, if you repeat a grade, what's going to be different about it? Have the teachers or the school professional at the school discovered the thing that's pushing your child away from success? If you have a kid with severe dyslexia, for example, and she's never been taught how to read better by using specialized techniques, she's a handicapped child in your class, and you keep giving her things that push against her handicap. So unless and until we do the right kinds of things in the classroom, it's predictable that these kids will continue to exhibit stress, like academic reactions to stress, like academic decline. Often this condition, this stress related behavior, is misdiagnosed as ODD, or oppositional defiant disorder. These kids look oppositional, they sound defiant, and they want to get away from things. And there is a separate category of psychiatric illness called oppositional defiant disorder. I don't dispute that, but you have to make sure that this kid is not exhibiting these behaviors because she or he or they are just trying to protect themselves from this onslaught of very difficult kinds of things. So the other kinds of behaviors that you see from kids under stress are acting in behaviors. Kids who socially isolate themselves, they avoid tasks, they refuse to go to school. These are kids who have difficulty sleeping, they exhibit poor self-care, they have eating issues, they have physical complaints, they get headaches, stomach aches, muscle aches, they get fatigued. So that's kind of the background for this. So very briefly, I want to talk to you about how to fix this problem. This is in a really small nutshell because this is a wonderful opportunity to talk to you, but we don't have a lot of time to go into strategies. So that's why the Wonder app exists. That's why the vast, wonderful resources on the understood.org app exist. And that's why we've listed some references for you that lets you expand your knowledge about this, both in print and in video. For those of you who don't love reading, there are a couple webinars that are in the links below too. And you'll find that on Understood or Understood as well. So here's the secret. You have to work on the underlying cause of the stress. There are kids who might be stressed just because they're anxious. They inherit it from their parents. They're nervous. They pick at their nails. They breathe fast. There are great things to do for stress, like yoga, meditation, exercise, nutrition, proper hydration, proper sleep. All those things that are good for stress in general are going to be good for kids like this. But you have to think about it. The kids that we're talking about have an added layer because of their learning or thinking difference that makes those baseline stresses even greater. So they're dealing with a two-level model of stress, if you will. The stress that comes with life, and then the stress that's added on top of that. As parents and teachers, we can work on both of those things, but unless we do, we're going to have kids who continue to exhibit these behaviors year after year after year. When confidence and competence go up, stress goes down. So if you have a kid who's sitting in school or sitting in front of homework who either realistically can't do the work, or more importantly, believes that they can't do the work, they are feeling incompetent. They do not feel confident. Therefore, stress is created. They want to get the heck out of there. The same thing is true if you reduce the stress level in kids that comes from learning challenges, their confidence goes up and their competence goes up. The brain is addicted to success. It tries to avoid failure at all costs, but when it tastes success, it wants to have more of it. It takes 3 successful learning experiences to counteract 1 negative learning experience in terms of the stress equation. Think about that. So kids have to be put into environments, not that's dumbed down, not that's too simple, but that's right at their level that they can handle. The other strategy that I want to share with you before we come to a close is that I like to use rating scales with kids. A kid sits down in front of a task, and the first thing I ask the child is this: how difficult do you think this task is? And the way I make it easy for them, if they say it's a 5-level difficulty, that means in your face, I can't do it, it's too hard. And so my job is to work with the child to say, how do we get it down to a 3-level? And the kid may not know, but as a special educator or a psychologist, I say, well, instead of a page of 20 math problems, let me give you one at a time. And guess what? You get to pick the first 3, the ones that look like you can handle them. So I want to get this kid experiencing positive success at the onset of the activity. And then I want the kid to tell me what he or she, how much more they can take, which next 5 math problems they'd like to do. So rating scale number 1 is how difficult is the material. 1 means it's really wicked easy, and if you make me do that, I'll feel like a baby. 5 means there's no way I can handle this. The second question you ask is, regardless of the difficulty rating, what's your ability to do the work? So if a kid says it's really, really hard, and I say, what's your ability to do the work? Here, the reverse symbol is true. 1, piece of cake, I can do it, all right? So my ability is really good. The difficulty is high, but I believe I can handle it. And you can walk away and let the kid do the work. There won't be much stress there. If the kid is wrong or is trying to impress you by saying, yeah, I can handle it, and then he does the first few problems and starts to crash and burn, then you get a 5-5 combo, which is too hard, can't do it, I'm out of here. So you have to be careful in the beginning stages of this. There's something that I've written a lot about called competence anchors that is a technique that where you take a kid back to something that he or she has done well. You keep it in a folder, a file. And if you're giving something, task A, that looks like task A that you did 2 weeks ago, pull task A out of that file. Show the kid his or her markings that said, I thought this was pretty easy and I thought I could handle it. And you can say to the kid, this one I'm giving you today is very much like that. Try a couple and see if you agree with me. Don't say, I believe you can do this. You want the kid to know that she can do this. And at the end of all this, you say, how did this work for you? What did you think about the rating scale? Did you think first, you said you couldn't do it at first. You said it was too hard and you couldn't do it. You got into it, you did it. How do you feel now? And then you say, do you think you can make this strategy portable? What do you mean, says the kid. Can you take this with you to school, to homework? Can you first say how difficult it is and then how much ability you think you have to do it, and then do the things that we're going to talk about to try to change those numbers. I want to see you in a 3-3 zone more of the time. It's not too difficult, and I have just the right ability to do it. All right. We're about at the end of our time for this. I'm going to take a look if I can figure this out, to look at the chat and see if there are a couple questions I can respond to. But I may lack the technical skill. Oh, here it's showing up. Give me a moment. I don't have a body, so I probably look invisible. Hang on just a minute. Okay. You know what? I don't see the chats. So here's what my promise is to you, and I'm sure that my good managers at Wonder are going to agree with me. We'll take these questions out. They'll feed them to me. I'll write subsequent posts in some of my Wonder app posts that address a lot of these questions. I already have. So I invite you to go there and look back in the history and see if I've answered a question that might be like yours. But we'll pay this forward and play this forward, because I don't want to keep you. We've all got busy lives. I've enjoyed meeting with you today. And right now I'm going to say goodbye, good luck. And I hope this material that I've taught to you today resonates with you. More than that, I hope it helps you and your kids become more productive people in the world we live in. So bye-bye, thank you, and stay tuned to Wonder. Sign up for the app and come and visit us. Bye-bye.